I was listening to your interview, David, on short-term rental success stories, and you were talking about how this industry is just, it kind of is the Wild West. Like there's a lot that it's so new, and there's a lot that's unsolved or unfigured out yet. So in your assessment, like what are some of the big things that are coming maybe that we should be thinking about, or that, potential problems in the future for short-term rental hosts that maybe they're not considering right now?
Great question. I'm going to take it a little different direction, because the
Sure.
way I look at it is there are historical precedents as far back as 100 years ago that chart our future if we, use our imagination a little bit. So I call it the Ford Model T story or paradigm. 100 years ago in 1908, Henry Ford doesn't invent the automobile, but he revolutionizes the access to it with the, part of the Industrial Revolution and assembly lines, things of that nature. Most people know that, right? What they don't think about is the fact that the entire world was built for horses and buggies, till virtually that day, because in 1909, there were 200,000 automobiles on the road. Within 7 years, there were 2 million. That period of time is almost the exact same. I have a presentation where the graphs, you just put them next to each other, was 2010 to 2015. In 2010, 8% of the American population had stayed in a short-term rental in the previous year. 5 years later, it was 32%. So it was this insane adoption of some new thing that had existed before but had never impacted society in that way. And then let's just say we're in 2021 now. We're basically in 1921 with the automobile. From 1921 for the next 10 years, what happened was folks from the auto industry started working more closely, specifically in Detroit, with the local elected officials who said, I have no idea how to deal with this. Like, I don't understand how to solve these problems. All I know is I have problems. And I could go into more details about how stoplights came about, and then eventually in the 50s with unsafe at any speed and these new studies and seatbelts and airbags. And so I think what we need to recognize is we need to solve the problems, because if we're looking for outside people who aren't experts, who haven't been in the trenches, who haven't been scrubbing toilets, who haven't been welcoming guests for the last decade, that we've been through our 10,000 hours of learning to be the experts. So I don't really think of it so much as which problem is going to be the biggest. I do know that if you look at, Airbnb's S1, if you look at any of the headlines, this is a neighbor relations issue because of real nuisance issues, which statistically are small, but in reality, it's the major issue. That's a good thing. That means we have a small volume of problems to solve, but we need to take them very seriously and solve them as quickly as possible with partnering and working with local officials, both safety, code, elected. It's an all hands on deck concept, but we can't rely on other people to come down from on high with some sort of silver bullet. It really is going to take us as a community to come together and say, what kind of future do we want? Do we want a harmonious future with our communities? Do we want everybody compliant? Do we want rules and regs? The answer is yes, because that helps us all understand what the basic rules are, the rules of the road, right? So we're determining the rules of the road that are going to, pave our way to a bright and successful future. The last thing I'll say too is that there is this element, one of the really interesting things, same thing with the automobile, there's a very low barrier to entry to starting to short-term rent. That is a great thing in many ways. It's caused a lot of problems because everybody goes through this learning curve, right? I found out the hard way that not having a noise monitoring system could lead to $30,000 worth of losses, legal issues. And frankly, the worst part was I felt guilty. I created that scenario. Even though my guests were the ones making the noise, I'm the one who gave them the key, right? So it's that sense of responsibility that we need to take. And that flows through to everybody from the day you list your listing, because guess what? This is real. This is a real responsibility. If you want to take part and you mess up tragically, it's going to affect all of us. But worst of all, that's avoidable. Education and building this kind of ecosystem where there's an expectation of responsibility. It's a big thing, but guess what? There's a lot of cars. This country is built on automobiles. Hospitality is 10% of the global economy, the fastest growing sector. It's not automatable, so it's durable. It's going to last long into the future. You know, pretty soon Ubers are going to be self-driving. You'll never have a self-driving host. This is the economy of the future, and we're building it.